The last people who remembered the old world are all gone. Not the ancient world, not the Roman Empire, not the Middle Ages. The old world disappeared only a few generations ago. Imagine meeting someone born in the 1880s. As a child, they traveled by horse. Most homes had no electricity. Nights were illuminated by firelight. News traveled at the speed of trains, and crossing an ocean took weeks. Then they lived long enough to watch television, witness the first jet aircraft, hear about nuclear weapons, and see humans walk on the moon. One person could remember both candlelight and spaceflight, and they weren't living through hundreds of years of change. They experienced it in a single lifetime. For almost all of human history, life barely changed from one generation to the next. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies found that children learned almost everything by watching adults do exactly what their own parents had done before them: hunting, gathering, storytelling, tool-making, raising children. These rhythms repeated for thousands of years with surprisingly little variation. If you were born 20,000 years ago, your grandchildren would probably live almost exactly as you did. Your tools might be a little better, your stories might gain new details, but your world would still feel familiar. The same stars, the same seasons, the same dangers. Then something changed. Around 12,000 years ago, humans began settling down. Agriculture slowly replaced constant movement. Villages became towns, towns became cities. Civilization was born. But here's what's surprising. Even after farming transformed society, everyday life still moved incredibly slowly. A farmer living in medieval Europe would immediately recognize the daily routine of a farmer living hundreds of years earlier. Wake with the sun, work the fields, harvest by hand, heat your home with fire, sleep shortly after dark. Technology improved, kingdoms rose and fell, empires appeared and disappeared, yet ordinary life remained remarkably stable. Historians sometimes describe this as the long human equilibrium, a world where change happened so slowly that it was almost invisible within a single lifetime. Then came the Industrial Revolution. For the first time, machines began replacing muscles. Steam engines shrank continents. Factories transformed economies. Railroads connected cities that had once seemed impossibly distant. The pace of change accelerated. But even then, it was only beginning. The true rupture came during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Consider someone born in 1885. As a child, they lit oil lamps each evening. Letters were the fastest way to communicate across continents. Doctors still understood remarkably little about infection. Most travel happened on foot, horseback, or by steam train. Photography itself still felt like magic. By the time they reached old age, antibiotics existed. Commercial aeroplanes crossed oceans. Telephones connected homes. Cities glowed all night under electric lights. Television brought distant events into living rooms. Nuclear power had become reality. Computers had begun their quiet revolution, and humans had left Earth. No previous generation had experienced such a dramatic transformation. Researchers often describe technological progress as exponential rather than linear. For thousands of years, advances arrived slowly. Then each discovery made the next one easier. Better tools created better science. Better science created better machines. Those machines accelerated communication, transportation, medicine, and industry. Progress began feeding itself. The result was something evolution never prepared us for.
Your brain evolved in a world where meaningful change happened gradually across many generations. Instead, modern humans now experience multiple revolutions before retirement. Think about your own childhood. The internet barely existed for many people alive today. Smartphones arrived, social media reshaped communication, artificial intelligence entered everyday life, entire industries appeared almost overnight. Children growing up today already inhabit a world that would seem impossible to someone born only 40 years ago. Psychologists call this generational compression. The cultural distance between grandparents and grandchildren is now larger than the distance separating dozens of earlier generations combined. Knowledge no longer passes primarily from old to young. Increasingly, it flows the other way. Grandchildren teach grandparents how to use new technologies. Parents ask teenagers how digital platforms work. For most of history, this would have been unimaginable. Experience used to be humanity's greatest advantage. Now, experience can become outdated within a decade. But something else disappeared along with the old world: predictability. For almost every human who ever lived, tomorrow looked a lot like yesterday. Your skills stayed valuable, your community stayed nearby, the place where you were born was often the place where you died. Today, careers change repeatedly, entire professions vanish, cities expand faster than memory can keep pace. The buildings from your childhood become apartment towers, stores disappear, neighborhoods transform. Even the languages we use evolve faster than ever before. This constant adaptation places demands on a brain that evolved for remarkable stability. Evolution works slowly, culture moves incredibly fast. Our biology still expects rhythms shaped over hundreds of thousands of years, while our environment reinvents itself every few years. That mismatch helps explain why modern life often feels strangely exhausting. Not because humans became weaker, because the world became faster than anything our ancestors had ever experienced. And yet, the people who first crossed that divide carried something extraordinary. They remembered silence before engines. They remembered skies without aircraft. They remembered nights dark enough for the Milky Way to dominate the heavens. They remembered communities where nearly everyone knew each other by name. They also witnessed electricity, antibiotics, flight, cinema, radio, television, computers, satellites, and space exploration. No generation before or since has stood with one foot so firmly planted in humanity's ancient past while reaching towards its technological future. They became living bridges between two entirely different versions of civilization. Today, those bridges are gone. The last people who personally remembered that older rhythm of life have all passed away. The world they carried now survives only through photographs, journals, recordings, and stories, which leaves us with an unusual realization. One day, future generations may look at us exactly the same way. They may struggle to imagine a time before artificial intelligence, autonomous machines, genetic medicine, or permanent settlements beyond Earth. To them, our smartphones may seem as primitive as telegraphs seem to us. Our worries may appear quaint, our technology unfinished, because history rarely announces that one world has ended and another has begun. Most people only recognize the turning point after it's already behind them. And perhaps that's the strangest part of all. The people who remembered the old world probably never realized they were the last generation who ever would.